All right, today we're going to dive into a topic that is so important, but honestly, it gets overlooked way too often. We're talking about umbrella and excess liability policies. Let's get right into it. So, let me just ask you this straight up. You've worked incredibly hard to build up your business, your home, your savings, but are they actually safe? Is your standard insurance policy really enough to protect everything you've built? $2 million. Now, this isn't some crazy hypothetical number. It's the kind of judgment a business could easily face in today's world. We're living in the age of mega lawsuits, where a single claim can just blow right past the limits of a standard policy, leaving your life's work completely exposed. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with why this threat is so real today. Then we'll break down your two main lines of defense, the financial umbrella and its more specialized cousin. We'll put them head to head, look at some real-world disaster scenarios, and then we'll figure out how you can choose the right protection for you. Here's the reality. The cost of everything is going up, and that includes legal claims. Lawsuits are just more common and more expensive than ever before. That standard $1 million policy that probably felt rock solid a decade ago, well, it might just not be enough to shield you from a really catastrophic claim today. So, what's our first big solution to this growing threat? Let's talk about your financial umbrella. This is the broad, powerful tool for getting some real peace of mind. An umbrella policy is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's this single big layer of extra protection that sits over all your other insurance policies. So when a huge claim completely drains your primary auto or general liability coverage, the umbrella is waiting right there to step in and handle the overflow. So let's walk through how this works in real life. Imagine, bam, a $3 million judgment hits your business. Okay, so your standard policy pays out its $1 million limit, but you're still on the hook for $2 million more? That is a terrifying spot to be in, but that's the exact moment your umbrella policy literally kicks in and covers that entire remaining balance. Your assets are saved. And it's not just about adding more money to the pile. An umbrella policy actually gives you broader coverage, too. It can protect you from claims your other policies might not even touch, things like libel or slander. Plus, it can cover those astronomical legal fees and even give you protection when you're doing business or traveling around the world. So while an umbrella gives you that wide, sweeping protection, sometimes you need a more focused, targeted tool. And that brings us to our second type of coverage, the more specific shield of excess liability insurance. Now, here's the key difference. Unlike an umbrella that sits over multiple policies, an excess liability policy gives you a higher limit for just one specific policy. Think of it like you're just stacking more money directly on top of your general liability policy, and only that policy. And because it's more restrictive, it serves a totally different purpose. It doesn't add any new types of coverage for things like defamation. It literally just follows the exact same terms and conditions of the one policy it's attached to, but with a much higher limit. It's a specialist's tool for a very specific risk. All right, this is where it can get a little confusing for folks, so let's just put these two side by side. We're going to make the differences crystal clear. If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. Umbrella is broad, covering lots of things. Excess is specific, covering just one thing. That is the fundamental difference, and everything else flows from there. Let's just break this table down nice and simple. The umbrella policy, right, it's broader, it's more flexible. It covers multiple policies underneath it and can even add new coverages. Because it does so much, it's usually more expensive. The excess liability policy, it's locked into one specific policy, offers no extra bells and whistles, and as you'd expect, it's generally cheaper because of that. Okay, enough theory. Let's get into the real world. How do these policies actually perform when a true disaster strikes and everything hits the fan? Okay, scenario 1. Picture a logistics company. One of their trucks is in a really bad accident. The injuries are severe, and the claim that comes in is just massive, way more than their standard commercial auto policy was ever designed to handle. And here, you can see the danger zone. The judgment is for $2 million, but their auto policy taps out at $1 million. That leaves a $1 million gap. I mean, without extra protection, that could literally bankrupt the company. But in this case, their umbrella policies stepped right in and covered that entire gap, saving the business from absolute financial risk. Now, let's look at a totally different industry with a different kind of risk. You've got a contractor facing a huge lawsuit after a tragic, fatal accident on a job site. For them, the number one risk is general liability. And the costs for this claim are about to go way beyond what their standard policy can cover. So again, you see this huge gap between what they owe and what their policy covers. But in this case, the contractor had that more targeted excess liability policy sitting right on top of their general liability. It was designed for this exact scenario. It kicked in, covered that specific overage, and made sure the business lived to see another day. So after seeing those examples, the next question is pretty obvious, right? How in the world do you choose the right protection for your situation? Well, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. You've got to take a hard look at the total value of your assets, both for your business and personally. Think about your industry. A high-risk field like construction needs a lot more coverage than a low-risk one. But here's a pretty good rule of thumb. If your risks are diverse and come from a bunch of different places, an umbrella is probably your best bet. If you have one giant, clear risk like that contractor, that's where excess liability really shines. All right, let's boil this all down. Umbrella insurance, that's your broad shield, giving you flexible coverage over multiple policies. Excess liability insurance, that's your targeted shield, pumping up the dollars on a single specific policy. But at the end of the day, they both have the same critical mission, to stand between a catastrophic claim and everything you've worked so hard for. The goal of all of this isn't to make you afraid of getting sued. It's about empowering you. It's about giving you the clarity to really see your risks and then build the right financial shield to protect what you've built. And that leaves us with one final thought. It's the same question we started this whole explainer with, and it's the one I want you to think about long after this is over. What happens when a lawsuit exceeds your limits? The good news is, now you know there's an answer.